motion picture. It stars Elizabeth Moss, some guy who you can't really see the whole time. Directed by Australian writer turned up-and-coming director Lee Winnell. Produced by Spookmaster Jason Blum. After Universal finally gave up their plans to make a Marvel-esque cinematic universe with their classic horror icons, they gave it to Winnell and Blumhouse. And now that movie has been met with critical acclaim, as well as being a smash hit at the box office. Out of the 30s and into the modern-day century, here is the CorderyFX review of The Invisible Man. Sponsored by Twisty Dart Cigarettes.
My first thought after seeing this was, had this movie actually been supernatural, it would have been one of the scariest ghost movies of the decade. However, this movie is a bit more sci-fi than its predecessors. As seen in the trailers, this isn't about a man who invents a formula to turn himself invisible and then loses his mind. This movie actually goes with the science of the cloaking ability from Predator, where it photographs what's behind you and projects it in front of you. That being said, this movie is so anti-exposition. No rock star scientists in leather jackets going, "Whoa, it's the TXR 500 invisibility suit. We're selling it to the military. We need to get it ready in time or we lose the funding." And Elizabeth Moss and see-through guy aren't like lab partners working on the suit and someone learns a bit more than they should have. None of that. And also none of those plot points. But don't take the trailer on face value. It comes across as very exposition-y just so you know what the hell the movie's about. But what this film has going for it is much more simpler and streamlined. This movie has like zero fat. It gives you just enough information so it can focus more on the tension. Starting off with a genuinely suspenseful opening scene, Elizabeth Moss's character is initiating her escape plan from her abusive partner, with almost no dialogue. He's sleeping in bed and she's assembling all of her necessary belongings and details, and her plan is to climb over the fence, run through the forest, meet her sister in a car on a road. But as she's sneaking through the house, they plant little visual indicators that the boyfriend has a scientific profession in optics. Clearly wealthy and powerful, she passes through his in-home sort of laboratory and she sees some tech suits on display, as well as a display rack which is seemingly missing a suit. For the most part, the rest of the setup is just Elizabeth Moss's character dealing with her PTSD of being a victim of domestic violence. She's living with her sister's ex-husband, trying to adapt to normal life again. Then she gets the news that her abusive boyfriend has killed himself, which then sets in some relief. He's not out there anymore. She also gets a few $1 million from his will, under the condition that she does not show any signs of mental illness. And then shit goes spooky. Perfect, simple setup. Although her plan wasn't to get money, there's a glimmer of hope that she'll be financially set up, but all that's brought into question when she begins seemingly losing her mind, implying her dead ex-boyfriend is still attacking her, for reasons she can't explain. And essentially what proceeds is a great suspense thriller where the antagonist may or may not be in the room with you. This movie has a trope I picked up on, where the doorway of an empty room represents the invisible man. Just our lead character constantly staring at the doorway, waiting for something. And something I enjoyed about the approach to the actual effect of the Invisible Man, this isn't a movie filled with wow CGI gimmicks. Not much poltergeist stuff happening with things flying across the room, which is a benefit to how this movie builds on tension. It gets you looking in all the corners of the screen, anticipating seeing something. And as I said before, it is so much like a ghost haunting a house movie, but with the angle of the ex-boyfriend wearing a technology suit that makes him invisible, it makes it more tense because someone actually is there. So, it wouldn't go without saying that in this day and age, so many properties are getting pointless remakes with the only new wow factor being CGI can do it better. But in return, most remakes lose the narrative of what made their predecessors great. Scripts have now become an excuse for things to happen. There was a time when original properties like The Invisible Man got a remake that was fresh, different, but still worthy of the title. For some reason in the 70s and 80s, remakes of old black and white movies were being made, and many could argue were better than the originals. Movies such as The Thing, The Fly, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Scarface, all movies that took the source material and not only modernized it, but added so much to the table, literally making them stand on their own. But now it seems like we're living in an age where movies from not even that long ago are being remade with nostalgia exploitation and my new favorite, pending rights. Gotta slap together another movie just so we can hold on to the rights. Another movie of note is the recent Child's Play remake. Walking out of that movie, my first thought was, if it was an original movie, it wouldn't actually have been half bad, but it still had that stigma of we want to be new, fresh and inventive, but we also have to be a slave to what we're remaking. That movie even opens up with a commercial about this company and its technology, how innovative and modern it is, and then it hard cuts to this doll that looks like it's from the 80s. This thing is meant to be like Siri or Alexa, but kid-friendly. But even then it raises questions. You would expect some like cutesy, simplistic looking Hello Kitty or Osimo, but it's an ugly ginger doll that's in overalls with light up eyes. A very contradictory image to what the rest of the commercial was. And had this still been part of the Dark Universe's Invisible Man starring Johnny Depp, you know it would have done the bandages and the goggles, and Depp would have been doing his Jack Sparrowisms to compensate for the lack of facial emotion. And just going off of the Mummy movie, how much of that film would have been action? Would Johnny Depp have played the villain? Or would they have made him like a misunderstood good guy who's silly and funny? When the movie is called The Invisible Man, that invokes a scary idea. There's definitely someone there, but you can't see them. Just the thought of Johnny Depp being in an action movie version where at the end Tom Cruise walks up to him and says, "We're putting together a team to fight ourselves, I guess. Oh, look out, it's Mr. Hyde."
Hello everybody, I'm Russell Crowe and this is Fighting Round the World. Gotcha mate! Oh, you wanna fight, huh? Think you can take me, you little testicle? Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? Do you know who I am? Get up, you little pussy! Russell Crowe!
Since I'm on that topic, I'd like to address the recent hilarious Titanic failure that was the Dark Universe. Apparently Universal has been trying to build a new age cinematic universe with all of their old horror properties, and it was just one flop after the other. The Wolfman from 2012, an unusual idea to actually set it in the time of the original, which no one in 2010 asked for. It's like Peter Jackson's King Kong. Arguably, it's the best remake of the original King Kong as you're gonna get. As in, it is the original. Only the filmmaking technology is updated, but it's literally the original film.
It wasn't the airplanes. It was beauty killed the beast.
It wasn't the airplanes. It was beauty killed the beast.
Probably an hour too long, but yeah, it's the best remake. Unlike that 90s remake of Psycho, where it's just the same movie, except in color and Vince Vaughn. Like, cool, it's the Wolfman, but we want werewolves, not men wolves. Then came Dracula Untold, which was okay. It had this annoying superhero movie vibe, like before he was the evil sex-addicted, gross bat-like man who has an army of wenches and preys on new wenches. He had like superpowers and fought in the armies and was ultimately cursed, but he still doesn't turn into proper Dracula at the end. He just becomes 90s Crow version of Will Turner. And then came the biggest should have kept our fucking mouth shut until we won people over with our first movie, The Dark Universe. You know how Marvel started making like 2 of their comic book properties a year and built up to the Avengers, which was a massive hit? Well, now you can do that too. Anyone can do that. In fact, you don't even need to build up to it. Just tease 50 movies in your introduction film. Show the fans that there's a whole universe on the way. Tease all these actors that have been cast in movies that aren't even currently filming. What can go wrong? Oh yeah, you can remake The Mummy, an old property that already has a successful remake that's still fresh in people's minds, and turn it into a Tom Cruise action movie. How can that fail? Movie bombs hard, just like the DCEU. They blew their load too early, and The Rock was cast as the Wolfman in this universe. They teased it so much as if people were begging for a universal horror icon universe. So that was scrapped instantly, and now it's all in Jason Blum's hands. Which sort of seems like the biggest, here, you fucking take it, no one wants this crap. But what he and Leigh Whannell have done is so smart. Take it back to the horror roots. Also give it a mosquito's dick-sized budget, which means you gotta get creative with what you can't show. Starting off with The Invisible Man is such a smart tactic. People fear what they can't see, and you don't need a $195 million budget for that. Which leads me to my next point, which is gonna get into spoiler territory, but here's the time code to skip to if you haven't seen it already. This movie uses domestic violence as the glue that holds the horror framework together. And I think Leigh Whannell has tapped into something really smart here. Not saying domestic violence is good, but it's a great way to ground your story in reality. When you just say a guy is attacking a woman with a predator cloaking suit, that's not really much of a pitch. But when you have a really bad and realistic situation going on with these characters, more specifically an abusive history, it adds so much character development through just the situation. This movie has a great slow and silent opening scene with Elizabeth Moss's character sneaking out of her partner's house. It's obvious that this has been her escape plan for ages, and this is the night it's all going down. She accidentally triggers a car alarm and then legs it into the woods. It's been arranged that her sister will pick her up on a certain road. Just as she gets into the car, her boyfriend has run the entire way to where she is and confronts her at the window. He's so aggressive that he punches in the window just to grab her. And what follows is a movie that continues the domestic violence themes in this theatrical horror setting. Before, she was being abused behind closed doors and no one could see the horrors that she had to go through. Now he can abuse her anywhere he wants, and now literally no one can see what she's going through. Not even herself. Even before, she had to keep silent about what she was living with due to her over-controlling partner and his abusive nature. Now she has to keep silent because what she is saying sounds crazy. My dead boyfriend is still alive and has figured out a way to be invisible, and he's still attacking me. That's like tapping into the fear of Freddy Krueger. I can't tell anyone I'm being attacked in my dreams because it sounds ridiculous. To me, this is what makes for a great horror film. It's not just what the threat is, but rather the emotional glue used to hold the gimmick together. Terminator 1 is a horror movie about a killer robot, but the glue is a love story. Aliens is a horror movie about being on another planet hunted by the literal devil, but the glue is a mother and daughter relationship forming. The Shining isn't scary because Jack Nicholson has an axe. It's scary because your father has slowly lost his mind and wants to kill you. The Exorcist isn't scary because a demon child says swear words and vomits pea soup. It's scary because your daughter has horrible things happening to her that both scientists and priests can't explain or handle. Also adding to this movie's strengths of being a worthy remake. Removing the angle of scientist invents an invisibility formula, loses his mind, and then it's scary. Handled perfectly in the original and even Hollow Man, but that's what the Johnny Depp remake would have been. Him wearing the bandages and goggles and a dumb hat and walking around like Jack Sparrow. This movie already has its villain being evil before the science is involved. That's why I think this movie is getting so much critical praise. It's not just rehashing the old, it takes the title concept and adds a fresh take and does something completely different. Now, I can't remember if Blumhouse said that this will be the beginning of their own cinematic universe. I am open to him remaking these old properties with this low-budget, filmmaker-driven approach, but no shared universe, please. We don't need the Invisible Man v the Wolfman, Dawn of Spooky. And this whole movie is a one-and-done story. It's tracking to be a financial success, but there's no sequel there, and I don't want a sequel. Leigh Whannell has been making smart decisions recently as a director, and I hope he moves on to either something new, or even a remake of a different Universal monster property with a new twist. The success of this film isn't because the world was demanding an Invisible Man remake. It was the new ideas and approach that went into it. And so yeah, Invisible Man should just be a nice little one and done. Did its job and did its job well. 1850 out of 1850. This movie was a nice little surprise. The trailer gives off the impression that it would be some sci-fi exposition action movie, but that's trailers these days, I guess. Like the shot in the trailer where the knife falls off the table and the pan catches fire. This has been edited to make it look like they happen instantly, where in the film they happen much slower and creepier. I think this movie deserves all the praise it's getting. It's not original, it's not mind-blowing, it's just horror done right, which is just a breath of fresh air. Hollywood, you want to make a good horror movie? Start making them budgets smaller. And fuck off with the sequel crazy hunger if the first movie is a hit. Stop it. Now all of you go see The Invisible.
Now you're a